A good horror game is something special. It is not able just to challenge us with its gameplay or tell a good story, but to scare us, to haunt our dreams and idle thoughts, even to make us question our own perceptions of reality. In this podcast, we meet the developers of both existing popular horror titles and hotly anticipated upcoming games to discuss how they do it, what inspires them, and all things spooky and unnerving. Welcome to Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards.
Hello and welcome to Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards. As ever, I'm your host, Phil, and joined by my esteemed, lovely co-host, Will.
Howdy.
And we have a very special episode again today because we are talking to members of our jury from last year and this year who have helped us pick the horror games that win the awards. So we're going to talk about all things from last year's awards show and also what's coming up in what promises to be another very, very stacked year of good horror games.
Mm-hmm.
So to start with, we're going to ask everyone go around and introduce themselves. So I'm just going to go in the order I can see people on my screen. So AdmiredPlague, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm AdmiredPlague. I'm actually a full-time talent agent for Twitch streamers, TikTokers, YouTubers, all that jazz. But I'm also a full-time influencer myself, and I dabble in the horror genre. I do cryptid and SCP stuff on TikTok. I do horror Let's Plays on YouTube, and I stream horror games on Twitch.
And just to make sure I don't mix up the Anna Webster.
Yes. Hi, I'm Anna C. Webster. I am a writer and a narrative designer for games, currently in a freelance capacity. I absolutely love horror games, both writing them and playing them. So really stoked to be here.
Andy?
Andy, Biohazard Declassified, survival horror content creator, mainly Resident Evil, as you can tell.
And Lee?
Game dev. I'm a streamer. I'm forgetting everything that I do. God, yeah, I just do a lot of stuff about horror games. I do video essays, and I am incredibly obsessed with horror games and horror in general, and I love talking about it.
Sean?
I run the channel Gone Hollow Media on YouTube. I focus mostly on video games, a big variety of content, but most of it usually focuses around the horror genre, so all horror, always.
And Ash?
Hi, I am Ash, and I'm currently unemployed. By choice, though. I've just left my job to start horror content creation full time. So this is the inception. The egg, the little egg is hatching. I am but a little egg. You can put that as my picture if you like. Just my face in an egg.
Done.
Just, yeah, that's that tiny egg breaking out. But yes, and just to round everything off, and this is the reason we didn't want to confuse the two names. So, Hannah?
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is HanRoseDav. I am a full-time content creator that specializes within the survival horror video game genre, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to be able... It's always a pleasure to talk with fellow horror nerds about all things to do with the genre, because we can just talk for ages about anything. But last year, obviously, we ran our first full award show with the Horror Game Awards.
Woo!
And we were lucky enough to have Ash and Anna as our presenters and the rest of you guys on the jury, amongst many others. So we're going to start off with that and talk about kind of what you thought about last year, because last year was a very stacked year for horror games as well. And we obviously had certain games which won in terms of Alan Wake 2 won the Horror Game of the Year, Resident Evil 4 won stuff. My brain's gone blank about which games won which awards. But yeah, I'm just going to open that up now. Do you want to talk about like what you thought about A, the winners, and then B, the year in general, and what your personal favorites were to come out of it? Anyone want to jump in?
No one wants to go first. Well, I don't
Not
think
everyone
it's
at once, guys.
No.
I think it's everyone just being patient and like waiting for someone else to go and not to talk.
Exactly.
I'll start. I feel like there was hundreds of horror games last year. It made it so hard to choose like what even to nominate for things. And I think that, you know, all the winners that won, like Alan Wake 2, you waiting for so long for a game, for a sequel, typically doesn't turn out so good. But
Yeah.
damn, everyone was blown away by it, and that was my personal game of the year, recommendation, and I stand by that tenfold. Even though I love Resident Evil, I love Dead Space, I love a bunch of indie stuff, but that waiting 10 years and then a game coming out and it being as perfect as Alan Wake was, it was great. So I think there was a lot of amazing games that came out. I think a lot of it came down to timing and just too many things for an award show. I really wish there was like way more categories or, you know, more winners, but you know, it was a stacked year and it was overall just really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a testament also to have a game so long in development. Obviously, we know from a lot of games it's not been a really good thing to have it gestating for so long, but this came out and literally was every pixel was perfect. You couldn't really get any better than that.
Yeah, we had two games that came out last year, which had been, I suppose, in development hell for a while, because Dead Island 2 came out after a very long hiatus as well, which I know me and Will and Andy had quite a lot of fun playing on that. Mostly just pure chaos and carnage, but...
I suppose
again,
I was just going to say, I suppose it was kind of the, like 2023 was just a massive resurgence in old horror IPs coming back. Like we had, obviously, the announcement of Silent Hill 2 remake, the announcement of the Alone in the Dark reboot, Clock Tower, of course, making a return out of absolutely nowhere. So, yeah, really like developers reinvesting in the horror genres and the survival horror genre was quite nice.
For sure. I think it was like such a year for everything. It was like a big horror year. It was very spooky. I feel like you've had like the big hitters like your Alan Wake 2, your Resident Evil 4, and even the massive game of last year, Baldur's Gate 3, even that was pumped full of horror references. Like playing through that campaign was spooky. And then you have all of your indie games like Dredge, my darling Dredge, and, you know, the Tartarus Key and other little ones like that kind of really have this homage to olden day PS1 horror as well. And I think that kind of ties absolutely into the point you've just made, where it's like you've got the sequels coming back, you've got the legacy of these games kind of shining through with releases that pay their respects to them, and then you've got the announcements for them being booted up even more. So I'm excited to see a little bit more original IP, I can't lie, which is why I think I champion Dredge so hard. But everything that's come out has just been fantastic. I feel like horror fans are eating good. We're gluttonous and fat and absolutely loving it.
Yeah, I mean, and pardon if you hear a siren.
It's Resident Evil 3 all over again.
I know. I wish. I love Jill. Anyway, I'm putting my like game dev hat on. Yeah, when I think about like production cycles, like 2023 in particular was like exploding with horror titles, and a lot of the time, like what games get funded and what games get made is often like in response to market trends. So I am really curious about like the effect that stuff getting funded in like the first part of the pandemic actually had on like the actual release schedules that we're going to be seeing both this year and into next year. Because a lot of times, like, and this has been like studied, more horror content comes out during really turbulent times because it's like that form of catharsis that people really need. So I'm just really curious to see, like, because we're like almost in like a new renaissance right now. I'm just really curious, like, you know, where things are going to go from here. I don't know. I think that's cool. And I'm responding to the initial prompt of like stuff we saw in the awards last year. As a game dev, I really, really appreciated that you all like came right out of the gate like, hey, the industry is having a bad time. I really appreciate that, because like that doesn't get shouted out a whole lot, even though it definitely should. So hats off to you there.
Well, the way we look at it, I mean, other people might say the same thing, but that they want to celebrate games. But I figure if you want to celebrate games, you want to celebrate the people who make them as well, because
Exactly.
otherwise they don't get made. You don't get these great games. So, not mentioning any names at all, obviously. But,
You know.
Something that I want to point out too, being because this was 2023 was my first time ever being involved with the Horror Game Awards, and something that I can deeply appreciate is because I know that this was our second year of doing it. Something that I can appreciate personally is you guys have allowed us as creators to nominate our personal horror game of the year, whether it's AAA, whether it's indie, and something that because personally for me, I actually nominated Dredge to be horror game of the year. Um, and there's nothing wrong with nominating a AAA game, whether it was Dead Space remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, or even sorry, I'm kind of looking at my little notebook right here. Any of the AAA horror games, there's something wrong with nominating those at all because they are like popular and they are AAA for a reason. But like for us to have the opportunity to even nominate an indie game, whether it's something that's super unique, whether it's a hidden gem, just to kind of shed light on games that people may not know about or have maybe seen around Steam or seen around the consoles or anything. So that's something that I can appreciate is you guys allowing us to kind of share our love for not even just the AAA games, but the indie games as well too, and kind of give indie developers a little more of an uplifting voice of, hey, I played this, I liked it, and you should go check it out.
Well, yeah, that was a big ethos of when we first started talking about and developing the awards, was just how every awards show seems to be just AAA, and it never ever focuses on all the amazing indies and the amount of people that start out creating indies. And it shouldn't be restrictive of how big you are. You should be able to get an award, even if you're just a solo developer. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
And we've also seen an incredible amount of talent starting to come out from these solo developers and really small teams. And like, just look at Signalis from 2 people. Do you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
crazy.
So crazy. Or even
completely.
something like Lethal Company as well too, which if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, it was one person that created
Yep.
that game, which is
Yeah,
Same
yeah.
with
so
Phasmo.
wild. Yeah, because they were
Phasmophobia.
such hits and such good multiplayers as well too.
Mm.
So
I
kudos
want
to
to
them.
thank the
Yeah.
Horror Game Awards because having a deadline really pushed me to play more horror games than I was expected to get through this year because I could have just left them in my pile to never play, but having a deadline, I forced myself to get through them. But in the last, say, 12 months or so, I've focused a lot more on VR. On the PlayStation VR 2 came out and the Quest 3 just came out, and there's been a lot of good horror stuff on there as well, especially Resident Evil Village got the port, Resident Evil 4. We've got Madison VR coming soon, Phasmophobia coming to consoles with VR. What else have we got? Arizona Sunshine 2.
Yeah,
There's
we got
so
Happy
much.
Land as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I played some of the older games.
Foglands.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
I worked on that game, so I'm very biased.
I'm playing it. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. The new patches.
Oh, yeah.
The Organ Quarter. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that one, but that is like a first-person Silent Hill VR game, and it's awesome. I'm not sure if you guys have ever played that one, but yeah, that was one of the first new IPs on the PSVR 2 that I played, and I really, really love that one. But there's just been a big push for horror in VR as well as normal horror games. But I'm just really liking that they're pushing more horror in VR because that is what VR is made for, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, horror, like VR was made to see Blue Knees up close in Madison. I am so gassed to sing that little song and get his little eyeballs while he's right in my face. Like, I feel like it's like, it's my most anticipated title at the moment is Madison in VR. I think VR is so innovative and impressive and scary. And playing Security Breach or Help Wanted 2, sorry, the Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 recently, and getting the full VR experience was, it's just a treat. I love horror in VR. I think it's really great to shout out.
Yeah. Although I can use the fact that I'm likely to get motion sickness from VR as my excuse. I'm not a wuss. I'm just might get motion sick from it. So
yeah.
You can't see it, but I'm pointing my finger at you and going, shame, through the screen.
Oh, God.
But on that point as well, I think that's the other thing is we had a lot of nominations from a lot of different games, and I think one of the things me and Will agonized over a lot was how we do this as fairly as possible, and we didn't want to kind of pre-select the games, which I think is the problem with other award shows, where it's like, whatever the most popular nominees are, we kind of filter them out first, so that the other ones get lost. We'd let the public vote on that essentially, but in doing that, like, people played an awful lot of games and played a lot of variety games, and still, like, we've still got. We were talking about it before we started. Like, oh, there's so many horror games I never even got to play last year, and this list just keeps growing. The dreaded backlog.
It got me. I got thinking about this because I was looking at the like the list that we have of the games, and of like keeping track of all the games that are coming out. And I was thinking about this more about this year, but it was relevant last year as well. As well, like I found a couple of games I hadn't heard of, and I checked them out, and they were in Japanese. And I don't speak Japanese, so I can't play them. And it said like it's not in your language. But I was like, there's so many games that we miss because there's lack of time. There's probably so many games we don't even get to play because of things like language barriers and stuff. Like there's so many horror games coming out, and there's probably even more that we can't play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I kind of got excited about that though. I was like, maybe I need to pick up a language so I can play more horror games.
Hey, any excuse to play more horror, go for it.
I feel like it's really nice when horror games come out in kind of their native language or the developer's native language, or something totally made up as well. Like, and then you kind of have to just do the work of using a subtitle or playing it through to figure it out. Like Mundawn was always one that stood out to me as like it was Romansh, I think, like a language that barely anybody speaks, but having the subtitles there or playing through it gives it more atmosphere, it makes it feel more authentic. I love that. So I think you're totally right in that. It's hard to get through them all, especially when there's language barriers, but when it comes with a handy subtitle, being able to kind of immerse yourself in that side of things is such an amazing way to see horror from a different perspective as well.
There's a title on that note on VR actually called The Last Labyrinth, where you're essentially in a wheelchair, you're bound to a wheelchair and you can't speak. And there's a young girl who enters the room and she speaks in a language that you're unfamiliar with. And because you can't speak, you have to try and figure out what she's trying to tell you. At the same time, you have to nod and move your head up and down to try and communicate with her as well. It's like a nice little addition to the story where you can't communicate with them, they can't communicate with you. And in VR, it's just a whole sort of, I don't know, array of different sensations, different things.
I love that. I love the nod or the shake to try and get through it. There's a film that I'm trying to remember where it's a bunch of people that are stuck in a room, which could be any horror film ever, but it's a bunch of people stuck in a room. And I think one of them speaks only Spanish and somebody only speaks like a bit of broken Spanish and is like translating for them or trying to understand them. And I think that's a really unique horror situation in itself. Like the communications, like exactly what you're saying, just it's a really interesting thing to play out. And I love the thought of seeing that in a game as well and being able to play into that as a strength, the whole communication thing breaking down. You've got other ones where like it's you can only communicate when you get close actually in game as well. But I love the way that the games play with that. I just like horror games, just like them. I think we all do.
So true.
Yeah, I did get that hint. Like we came into this conversation and started to think, you know what, maybe these people like horror games.
Give enough nice vibes.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think, obviously we've not, as we've just discussed, there's so many games from last year we haven't even had a chance to play, but already whole new year and whole new stack of games. So I think that's obviously the thrust of what we want to talk about today. So kind of push in that direction and talk about kind of what's come out so far, but also what's coming out in the rest of the year, or what might be coming out in some cases, because there's still a lot of speculation, I think. But what are you looking forward to? What are you hoping for? And what's on your radar as things stand?
Oh man, I have such a long list. It's like not even funny anymore. There's so many good games that are going to be released. And the funny thing is too, is even though the demos are currently out where, we can experience them for just a short-lived time, I'm still waiting on some, because I know that with Steam, it'll say like Q2, like 2024. But oh man, for me personally, I think one that sticks out the most, other than the Silent Hill 2 remake, because I'm very slowly but surely making my way through the series itself. Um, oh man, if we're gonna talk about like big hitters, definitely the Until Dawn remaster for PC. I
Yeah.
I am such a stand for that game. Like, and don't get me wrong, like I liked the Corey. I thought it was fun. And another thing too with Supermassive Games is that we recently heard that they have a licensing for a Scream game, and oh my god, to have a Scream Supermassive Until Dawn style game is just personally such a like dream of mine. But anyways, Until Dawn, playing that on the PS4 and having it be a PlayStation exclusive, like it's one of those games that you're so passionate about that you want everyone to experience it. And the fact that it's coming to PC in Unreal Engine 5, if I'm not mistaken, it looks so gorgeous. And the trailer and the preview for it looked so amazing. So I'm for a big hitter, I'm really excited for that. As well as I don't know, I know that we're all horror game content creators, lovers, devs, stuff like that. I don't know if anyone else plays Dead by Daylight, but I'm really pumped for the casting of Frank Stone. I'm very curious about that game in particular.
Only have 3,000 hours across 3 different systems on Dead by Daylight.
Is Until Dawn, is it a remaster or a remake?
It's a remaster, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they
Remaster,
called it a
I think, if I'm
remaster,
not
but it
mistaken.
looks
Yeah.
like a remake in a lot of
Yeah.
because it looks like
Full
they've done a
visual
lot.
overhaul, same game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Same exact
okay.
story, big overhaul.
Okay, I was just curious because yeah, it looked so different that I was like, and because they were like, yeah, it's Unreal Engine 5, I was like, how are they gonna do
What
that?
are you?
I was this close to replaying it about 3 months ago, and I was like, I'm going to hold out. There's going to be a remaster. There's going to be a remake.
Mhm.
I'm
I'm
glad
the
I
same
did
way.
now. Yeah.
Didn't they announce as well like an actual movie production or something like that is
Yeah.
Yeah, they did for Until
supposedly
Dawn.
happening?
Mhm.
I'm curious how that is going to work because like the narrative design of that title is that it splinters and movies don't really do
Yeah,
that.
agreed.
Mhm.
There's
So
been a couple of like Netflix originals that have done something
yeah.
similar with like the Black
Bandersnatch.
Mirror. There was
Mhm.
Yeah, that was
there
it,
was a whole Black
Bandersnatch.
Mirror thing that did that. Also the Final Destination movie had options that splintered how deaths happened, which was pretty interesting. So I think with current technology, if they did it in a weird episodic way, there's a good chance you can probably get away with it. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's if they choose
Yeah.
to do it that way. I mean, if they don't, it loses the main charm of the game. That game, which I always thought was a group of characters who are, for the most part, really unlikable, getting them killed in horrible ways.
Mhm.
That was always my main appeal for that game. Was just like
I feel like if anyone were to have a platform for it, it would have to be something like YouTube. Like look at Markiplier that does like the Markiplier and all the Markiplier series that he does.
Mhm.
The way that you can use chapters and stuff on YouTube is so well done to get different like endings and different paths. I think that'd be like the best platform to put it on for that kind of a thing. Unless either that or you're literally stuck with a like a disc format, like a DVD. Which do people still have those?
I don't even know.
Still don't even have slots for those anymore.
No.
So like,
They should rig the cinema with like everyone has 4 buttons to press on their seat and they just choose it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But it's never going to happen.
Have it based on
like
the
when you're in
audience
college.
participation.
Yeah.
Like colours.
Yeah.
PlayStation
What's
2
college?
I think something that a lot of the fans of the game itself are really curious about is the casting. Like, are the previous characters that like as
Where's
Hayden
Hayden?
here? Yeah, are they going to be coming back for the movie? Are they going to be completely recasted? So I'm curious to see how they're going to do that.
I also, this is like a whole other can of worms. I really hope they hire actual Algonquin people to work on that project. Because like that was my
representation would be nice.
That was my big issue with that game. I was like, hello? Hello? Like, so I don't know. If they actually like if they hired a screenwriter or at least consultants, if not like native actors, that would be rad as hell. But
I agree.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can hope.
100%.
Yeah.
But looking forward to the future. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead. I was mostly done.
I try to stay on topic sometimes. So I think for like me, The game that I'm looking forward to coming out this year is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Because
Mhm.
Hellblade 1 was such a well done, like just the audio alone for Hellblade 1 was so freaking amazing, and I've been waiting so long for Hellblade 2 to come out, and I just keep getting teaser after teaser after teaser. So for it to hopefully finally drop sometime this summer, I think that's like my top of the top for me right now with upcoming horror games.
I think I have to agree. Oh my god, I feel like shivers running up and down my spine because I've worked for
I know,
PlayStation for
I
3.5 years. PlayStation for 3.5 years, and I'm like, my most anticipated game is Xbox's Senua. But I am so excited for it. I loved Senua Sacrifice. So seeing a kind of level up and be, you know, a strong baddie and all that sort of thing, as in baddie, as in, you know, like a cool person, not an enemy.
Right.
I'm getting my lingo a little twisted there. But seeing Senua kind of just be cool as hell, and that trailer where she's chanting into the camera, and I am gassed as well. I cannot wait. I'm also really excited for Alone in the Dark, which is super soon as well.
Yeah.
I have done the Steam stream for that one, so I got to have a little play of it, which was really fun. I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to see some more from that one and get into the whole game and see all its influences and all the different things that are coming into it from a whole legacy of Alone in the Dark. Like, that's such a big name, so to bring it back again in 2024, I think is a really nice treat for us to have as well.
To what extent does that feel? Because me and Will and Andy, again, we were talking about that when it was kind of announced, and about how it fit, like it looked very Resident Evil 2 remake in kind of aesthetic and the approach, and obviously the over the shoulder. How much does it feel like that, or does it feel not like that at all, and we've got it wrong?
No, I thought it felt very Resi-esque. It reminded me kind of like in the same way that Tormented Souls is quite Resi-esque. Like, it's that kind of picking up items, putting them in the right area. Like, you've got to unlock a house slowly, like Desetto Man opens up as you go through. So, and then different things happen. So it's definitely that kind of vibe, where loads of locked doors, loads of different aesthetics. Trying to figure out where I stop here, so I'm going to leave it there. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you mentioned another one that's coming out this year as well, Tormented Souls 2.
Yeah.
Which
I'm
just going to put that right at the top of my most anticipated list and just leave it there and just say that's it. That's the one.
You're so gassed for that one, aren't you? I remember you talking about Tormented Souls before.
Yeah. That when we first playing that, like the original game, that it's such a good game. And that was, along with Signalis, that was one of the games that inspired us kind of doing the Horror Game Awards in the first place. Like,
yeah,
because obviously it got no recognition whatsoever anywhere mainstream.
No.
Horror games often don't. It's really weird. It's like, stop it.
I wish there was a category, like, even I was watching the Oscars with my parents the other day, and the fact that there's no, like, I know we're talking about horror games, but I'm sure a lot of us are fans of like horror movies as well too. It's like, why isn't there more representation within the horror community? Like, it's just as popular as if it's something that's an action or drama or a romance comedy, anything like that. Like, it was just kind of disappointing to see like um horror films get snubbed, I guess, more or less of a better word to say. I wish the game awards themselves, other than us, we're definitely showcasing horror games every day, which is fantastic. But I wish the game award show would actually have like, like horror game of, whatever, because, I feel like being in the gaming industry, like, it's important to not only other than Alan Wake 2, I know that I believe that was a horror game that was actually part of the horror game or not the horror game awards, but the actual like video game awards. It would just be nice to see more representation of horror in general in media that way.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you have something that's considered like genre fiction, right? Not just like mainstream, the bar of entry is like so much higher to like actually get in. So like horror games, you have to be an Alan Wake 2 or a Resident Evil 4 remake to even get a mention or even get into the category. Or like, you know, because there's not like a category for like best Western game when like there's a lot of Westerns. But like, you know, in Hollywood, there's also a lot of Westerns, but you have to be a prestige title like Killers of the Flower Moon in order to even get a nomination. And like, I just feel like the bar for entry is just so much higher with genre fiction. It's not fair.
No.
Not fair at all, no.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the whole AAA versus like indie issue as well, because you've got that again. I'm speaking in general terms, but the amount of AAA horror games is relatively small, whereas the amount of horror games in general, the vast majority are indie, and not like, you know, the darling indie, like the ones that like get picked up by the mainstream and like, oh yeah, look, we love indie games because this particular one that everyone loves, we love. It's, you know, the ones that are like slogging away in obscurity, and I think that's part of it. So it's not unique to horror, but I think horror is probably a prime example of it.
Hey, speaking of indie games, I'm gonna throw it out there. Hollow Body. That's my most
Yes.
anticipated game.
Yes.
I
Oh
cannot
my
wait for that.
lord. I'm
That's
so
gonna be
pumped for that.
amazing. I
good.
saw the trailer really. I remember seeing the trailer like ages ago. Like before, because I remember it got like a graphics update. So this was before then, and I just sat there and like my jaw dropped, and I was just like, "This is everything I've ever wanted." Like, it looks so good.
I played the demo recently on stream and I loved it so much. I not only subscribed to their website, not sponsored by the way, subscribed to their website and I sent them an email and I was like, I want to if there's a way for me, like I will give you my soul for a review key or even just even if I don't get that, just to support the game. Like I will buy it with my own money dollars. I'm okay with that. But I was just so blown away with how fantastic that game was. Even and that's what I love about like demos. Like the demo itself was just so when you play something that's just so short-lived as a demo, but it's so good. It gives you something to look forward to, especially as a content creator as well. And to just have like these opportunities with these devs, and just to showcase something that's so like I'm speechless when it comes to that game. I apologize. I'm very excited for Hollow Body. It's like the one indie that I'm very excited about.
Do not apologize.
I think also on that, like on just going off of the demo thing, I had the same thing with Crow Country when I played the Crow Country demo, and I was like, again, this is incredible. And I think that one was really special for me because it captured a lot of nostalgia for me. It felt like a game I could have played when I was a kid. So that was another one that I got really excited about because I was just like, I don't know if people do that. Like that's one of my favorite things is like there's a lot of old style games, but not all of them capture that like feeling of nostalgia. And I think that anything that does that is just like really exciting and special. It's a skill for sure.
That's
I do want to say, we do briefly. I know we was talking about Silent Hill earlier, but kind of let's call it phase one of the new Silent Hill era has concluded. Very, very mixed reception. I'm very interested to see not only Silent Hill 2 remake, I'm sure we all want to see that, but Silent Hill F, Silent Hill Townfall, the return to Silent Hill. Like Silent Hill has completely like resurrected itself, and I want to know why.
Has anyone else played the short message? Yeah, because I played that and I was obsessed with that. I thought that was amazing.
But I watched my friends play it.
I think that was really good.
I didn't play that one.
It's definitely, if you get a chance, it's definitely worth a shot because I played it with my partner and we both agreed. Like my partner likes horror, but not in the same way. Like more of a, I don't know, just like not like an outsider opinion, but it's grown on them more in the recent years. Whereas like I've been super into it for quite a long time. I guess it's like I've rubbed off on them a bit, but even they agreed. They were like, "This is amazing," and their favorite Silent Hill. Because I know, like before, I think was it before we were recording, we had a bit of a Silent Hill chat, and their favorite Silent Hill was 4, and mine is 3. And yeah, and short message captures a lot, and it does references to every single Silent Hill game, and it's all really subtle, and it's not too in your face, but you are sat there as a fan, like, "Hey, that's amazing." I think it was a really good little like dive into, I guess, like this revision of Silent Hill, but at the same time I'm like, I really wish they made a big game. Like the I can't remember the name of them, but the studio that developed that, they deserve like the chance to do a big Silent Hill game or even just a big horror game, because they absolutely kicked ass with that.
I'm
They
still
might get to.
wondering if there is a connection between the short message and any of the other titles that are coming later, like especially Silent Hill F. That feels like it might have some vibes of what we saw in the short message.
Yeah.
We don't know what that one is yet. But like, to answer your question of like why, I think it's because Konami saw Capcom making all of these remakes and was like,
Huh.
I like money.
That's why, like, I don't even really need to put my game dev hat on for that one. I'm just like, the market was there.
I really liked the short message, but I'm not sure if this is like a wider Silent Hill reference, or was it Jeff the Killer on the wall in the poster? It really looked like Jeff the Killer.
I'm almost
creepy
certain I know
pasta,
what you're on
isn't it?
about. But I feel like that was like, for me, right? And I'm just talking from personal experience, right? I have a niece who is sort of the age of the characters in that game, and she loves horror in that sense of like, like how that sort of thing where kids really like mascot horror or like weird horror figures. They become obsessed, but they're not scared by them. They're just
like Puppy
No.
Playtime
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
Huggy
And
Wuggy.
Everywhere.
and even like Jeff the Killer, it becomes like a weird icon for them, that they're like, oh my god, I love this character. I'm not scared of them, and it doesn't mean anything beyond that. But that to me felt so real, because I was like, yeah, I could see my niece having that poster up. Like, that made perfect sense.
I can't believe it. The new generation, like, I was terrified of Slender Man. I was genuinely terrified. And now I'm thinking of all of these kids with their Slender Man plushies. Oh, it makes me feel weird and unsettled, especially for Jeff the Killer as well. I thought that picture was actually cursed and he would come and get me if I looked at it. Like,
It kind of reminds me. Oh, I apologize.
That's all right. No, I work in a primary school, so I work with kids from 5, and I had one kid this week. I spoke to him and said, because I was talking to the kids about play Fortnite and that kind of thing. One went Choo Choo Charles, and I was like, oh my god, how do Choo Choo Charles? I was like, how do you know that? He's 5.
Do you think the parents just kind of saw like, oh, this is a game about a train?
Yeah, well, he's obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, so it's just an easy end to the horror genre.
There you
so
go.
I like how
YouTube suggested, right? Like, just, it probably came up.
I was like, you absolute legend.
Is so like scary as well. Like, even the download, it's not like you confuse that for a train. That like Choo Choo Charles is one spicy MF, like his legs. Oh, I think he's horrible.
Yeah.
I don't understand how kids are like so not disturbed by it. I grew up so afraid of everything.
It kind of reminds me of this thing I saw on Twitter. I think it was like, or X, whatever you want to call it. It was like this.
It's Twitter.
Yeah, it's Twitter. Sorry, Elon.
You're fine.
But it kind of reminds me. It reminds me of this little girl that I saw on. It was maybe it was TikTok. It was one of those 2 apps where this little girl had a birthday party, and it was like she was dressed up as Michael Myers. And then for her big birthday surprise, they had someone dress up as Michael Myers like come out, and she like was just so excited and like gave him like a huge hug. It's so cute. Also a little disturbing, but
Final
again,
girl
like
energy.
yeah, it was super cute and super wholesome and just so funny. But I guess if we think about it this way too, when it comes to children and horror, I mean, you have the FNAF series, and you have Bendy, and you have I feel like I'm missing another one.
FNAF.
Poppy Playtime. Like, you're having like this, like, kids are getting more into horror as well too, but it's in a way that's like, I feel like we don't really see a lot of like cute and horror type references or type games. So it's interesting to see. Like, my 7-year-old nephew really loves Roblox, but he likes the like the horror mod to it. I don't know what it's called because I don't play that game, but he's just like, yeah, like he's like, Auntie Han, he's like, what's a crucifix? And I'm like, oh my god, like, I know I'm not about to have this conversation with my nephew, because he knows that I content creation for a living, and he's watched and seen me play like Cult of the Lamb and stuff like that. So, which I guess would be a cross between cute and kind of horror in a way. But it's interesting to see these kids kind of get into like the horror genre without displaying a fear. for Tucci Charles, I'm a huge arachnophobe. I can't even play that game. So to know that there are children out there playing that game, hey, more power to you.
Oh, it's
The-
wild. Like I feel like the child in this situation because I've only just started playing Cult of the Lamb. I'm like, ooh, that's spooky.
Yeah.
But it's just I love it. I love finding stuff that kind of turns the expectation on its head. I think I could sit and watch anything gnarly or like people getting their limbs ripped off or like you know go into the evil within and watch people get chainsawed and be like, yeah, cool. But if they start like making it sweet and nice and then introduce like a big stabby knife man or a creature that has a million teeth, I think that I just think it's a lot more powerful. So it's definitely
like once you're out of your comfort zone with something sweet and nice, and then the stabby knife man comes, you're like, this is better. This is more relaxing.
yeah,
I'm home now.
yeah.
I feel like we're starting to get some of that though. Like look at Dread XP with Amanda the Adventurer. It starts off adorable.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a Dora the Explorer game. Oh, never mind. No, it is not. This is terrifying. You know, I mentioned in a chat in text like Doki Doki did the same thing. Like I had no idea what Doki Doki was. I'm like, cool, anime book club, let's go, let's have a good time. And then like my second playthrough I was like, oh, this is dark. So like I feel like there are some games that are starting to kind of like blend that you know, the mix of cute, adorable with horror. But yeah, I still don't understand how people were like, Huggy Wuggy's adorable with all those razor sharp teeth. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Bendy I kind of understood. It was like very cartoony and kind of
Disney kind of
cute creepy.
Yeah.
But Huggy Wuggy, that's a different level of messed up for children, in my opinion. But that's okay.
I mean, to be fair, I was definitely that like strange little girl who, and to this day, you can show me like a horrible monster, and my first thought is like friend.
It's cute.
Yeah, I'm like that is friend shaped right there. I don't know. Maybe I've just always been a weirdo, but I think kids are just like a lot more open to like that kind of stuff. That's just kind of how they are. My favorite show growing up was Courage the Cowardly Dog, you know, like
yeah.
I love that show. Good show.
Yeah, someone on itch.io actually made a game. They made like an indie horror game with Courage the Cowardly Dog on itch.io, and I'm really curious to play it. They have, yes. I haven't played it yet, but I have it downloaded, so I'm excited to take a look into that.
I've literally only seen like 10,000 SpongeBob horror games on itch, so I'll go find the Courage game. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think I have it downloaded. So let me see if I can actually post it in our little Discord here.
Oh, bless. You know what I'm doing this weekend? Sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, I had two things that have come up and I keep trying to shout them out because I'm that kind of person.
Go.
One was the Roblox to horror game pipeline is incredibly real. That's how my niece got into horror. This is fantastic and I love this. I found out that my niece was playing Roblox and was playing horror games and was showing it to me, and it was a Roblox Dead by Daylight game. And she didn't know what Dead by Daylight was. And this must have been about a year or two ago. And then my partner, who was super into Dead by Daylight for a time, and I mean like obsessively amazing at it, was like, oh, this is what the game is, you know, this is Dead by Daylight, and showed it to her, and her jaw was like dropping. She was like, oh my God, this is amazing, but also it's a little bit scary. But now she plays Dead by Daylight and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and she's like super good at them. And I just watch her play, and I'm like, this is insane, right? Because you're still a tiny child. She's like, yeah, but I have to survive, or you know, she'll be playing as the killer, and she's like, I have to get them and I have to kill them. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is amazing. I love it from a horror perspective, but that start from something like Roblox is amazing because it's like I didn't know. I've never played it, never ever, and I didn't know it had so much room to grow into different things and to sort of introduce kids into these different genres. And I actually think there's something quite special about that, which is not something I feel like. I mean, I don't know if we're similar ages, but I didn't have anything like that when I was a kid. I was also a weird kid. I just found horror, like, so it's just really cool to see that. And the other thing I wanted to throw out was I feel like cute horror is a thing that's becoming very real. There are a lot of cutesy horror games, and I actually played one from this year the other day called Kinito Pet. I don't know if anyone's played it. Yeah, where it's like one of those desktop pets, and you're like doing stuff that seems adorable, and then you're getting like flashes or like body bags with blood pouring off of them, and you're just like, this is not the computer pad I had when I was a child. But I love that. And I think there was another
Yeah.
one called from last year. I think it was last year. It was like Bonnie's Bakery, which is a very, very cutesy, looks all pink and fluffy on the surface. And then you start playing it, you're like, oh my God, I'm getting people for ingredients to make things.
Yeah.
Classic Sweeney Todd moment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh my God, yeah. Shout out to Ravenous Devils for being the actual Sweeney Todd game. I love that game. That's quite an old game, but that's great.
I think
Unfortunately, I have to jump. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
That's
got
okay.
a skedaddle as well, actually. But thank you, guys. It's really appreciating. Good to meet you all, fine folk.
Oh, no worries. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll wait till you're gone before we talk about you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Actually, you know
Thank you.
what? Now I'm stoked. No, it was an absolute pleasure hanging out with everyone here. And thank you guys for giving us the space to kind of chat about horror stuff from last year, this year, and ongoing. And looking forward to the next episode.
Absolutely. Hope to chat to you again soon.
Yeah, no, definitely. Catch you
Awesome.
later.
Take it easy.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Right, now that they're gone.
In
We
terms
can
of
properly start the episode now.
anticipated games,
Yeah.
in terms of anticipated games, I think everyone here has already mentioned all the ones that I was probably really excited about. So what I'm always excited about is what's coming next. I want the future games that have not been announced
Yeah.
yet, and I know there's probably a ton that we've all been waiting for a long time. I think we've been spoilt by Capcom since 2017 with like a new title basically every year. So I'm always expecting the next Resident Evil remake or sequel. So we don't know what we're going to get from them, but I'm always looking for stuff like that. Evil Within 3, I want that. I want a new Siren game. I want all these horror games that are just hidden in the
Definitely.
ether, waiting for us.
Yeah, I know. Certainly from the Resident Evil fandom point of view, like we are very spoilt and constantly like the fact that nothing's been announced this year yet has got us all sort of sitting there going, but it's going to be soon, right? It's going to, Resident Evil 9 or
We can go like
Resident
5
Evil
years
5
between
remake
6
or
and
whatever.
7, but now we want it every 2 months.
Yeah, we're getting that Silent
come on.
Hill itch now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Switching gears a bit.
No,
Yeah, I'm really excited for Little Nightmares 3 as well, which is also being made by Supermassive. Like, I think this is the first time that, because like it's the IP is owned by Bandai Namco, and it was made by Tarsier, I think, who was bought by Embracer. Embracer, I swear to God, if you don't do it.
No.
But
They've already done it.
I know, but Supermassive also just had layoffs. Game companies, stop it. Yeah, but I'm really excited for that one because that's one of my all-time favorite series. Sorry.
No, it's fine. No,
More
I think,
in the sorry, Mom. More in the cute, creepy classification is what I tried to say there. Sorry.
I don't know how
Game has
cute
very
it
dark
is.
themes as well.
Yeah, I
The
don't know
first
how
one,
cute it
definitely.
is on the basis of like that's one of the few games that's got my wife to get something on her Switch other than Animal Crossing, and hearing like when she's playing it and like every so often just go into like screams of terror and frustration as some horrible thing happens on screen. It's like no, don't run away. Or so yeah, it more of that and less of the like, oh, but that's very cute. I think she got over that quite quick the second the cute thing started getting splattered.
Yeah.
That's like Bramble as well. Like Bramble last year, I feel like that
Oh, yes.
deserved
Yeah.
so much more. Like Bramble is incredible. The folklore it's based on is so interesting and fun. The sidestep from fairy tale into nightmare is done so deftly and so realistically to kind of the grim fairy tale vibe as well. I just think it's such a special game. And oh my god, that ending with the Hall of the Mountain King when you're running around on a little table. I was literally like, oh no, it's just the music, the music. I was literally, you're running around the table, Hall of the Mountain King's playing. I was fist pumping. I was like, Alton Towers, baby, let's go. Like, it was so good.
That is like the most epic, like final boss music I think I've ever had in any game. Like that moment.
It's not. Don't worry, no spoiler because I think you'll recognize the tune, but it's just the way that they do it is so good. Like you just, oh my god, just get there and see it, and you'll understand what I'm saying.
and for anyone watching this who's not from the UK, Alton Towers was a theme park which it was the adverts who played that tune,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where one of the places we'll know Hall of the Mountain King from is the adverts for Alton Towers. But just if anyone from like America or anywhere is like, Alton Towers?
Us Americans.
It's like that's also why we're all scarred for life since
Yes.
childhood. 'Cause that-
That's true. I feel like horror heads and theme parks go hand in hand because it's the adrenaline rush,
True.
isn't it? And the reaction and kind of being out of control and someone else dictating the experience for you. Like, wasn't the Saw ride was that Alton Towers or was that Thorpe Park?
Thorpe Park.
Thorpe,
Yeah. I
We
feel
need
like
one of those here. Dang.
America has like all
Halloween
the horror
Horror Nights.
stuff. That's
Well, we've also got the Haunted Mansion, so
exactly.
Yeah.
We got to keep a little bit for ourselves. We've got to have the Saw ride, which I think
We're
shut down now.
Aw.
I also just wanted to also bring it back to games we're looking forward to. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but not in this podcast. So here we go again. Still Wakes the Deep, which oh, yeah.
That's literally on my list. That's like top.
Oh, please go ahead then. I've done loads of yapping.
Oh no, it's yeah. So basically, one of my biggest fears is water, deep water, and being stuck on an oil rig somewhere on the outer side of Scotland is like pretty much my ultimate horror. So, like the whole entire setting is just I'm just ready for it.
Absolutely agree. Like this is the whole reason for me as well. It's not so much thalassophobia, which is like fear of open water or deep water or whatever. It's specifically, I looked it up, submechaphobia, which is like man-made objects in water. Like seeing the seeing like the Titanic debris like makes me feel really ill. Like it just like gets me all gaggy. Like watching underwater, like I was fine when they were in the water, but when they started looking at like the oil rig or the mining rig stuff, I was like, bleh, bleh, bleh. So I feel like Still Wakes the Deep absolutely nails that feeling of being on something that shouldn't be there and then digging too deep and too greedily. Am I right, dwarves? And like finding something that then punishes them for it. Oh, just
and you're in Scotland. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, is it
what way to get us cancelled in like all of Scotland?
No, I'm sorry. I'm like of Scottish ancestry. It's fine. It's good.
But on that subject of like the underwater, like that kind of feeds into. There was another game. My head is not. Beneath, which plays on a lot of the same things. Which is coming up, and I think there's going to be a lot of that because there's sections of that game where you kind of swim in between like different levels, and you've got obviously got no weapons or any protection while you're swimming. You're just in the water, and for me, the biggest fear on water was always like games like Tomb Raider 2 or whatever, when you don't know where to go and you drown before like you get to the next area. Although, did you say it was called submechaphobia?
Yeah, submechaphobia is like human stuff in water. Like, do you remember the Smirnoff adverts? Again, I watch a lot of TV, so there was a Smirnoff advert about it being like 30 times more distilled than anything else, and it was pulling all of the crap out of the ocean. And there was like downed planes and boats, and it was like pulling out all of this rusted metal and creaking it everywhere until the water was like pure clear. It was a great advert. I was like, wow, that must be some very distilled vodka. But that was kind of like the peak of submechaphobia, I think, just to give you a roundabout way of saying yes.
Oh, okay.
Huh, interesting.
Because I was going to say that would make a great title for a horror film or game, submechaphobia.
Tetsuo the Iron Man underwater.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, that sounds like a sort of water Tetsuo, right? That would be amazing.
Water Tetsuo, there we go. Tetsuo.
Just create a new genre. There you
go. Electric Boogaloo.
Be water skiing instead of roller skating.
Yeah. I'm learning so many different. That water is apparently a common factor in a lot of people's fears.
Oh, it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Mine is where you can't see the bottom.
Yeah.
So
Oh, really?
even if I'm like in a pond or a lake and you can't see the bottom, I have to get out, even if I'm completely fine. It's
I love
just
how you specified pond. I like the smallest body of water. Once I was in a puddle and it was quite deep.
I think for me personally, I think my fear of deep water started with either Mario 64 with the Super Mario 64 with the big eel, or it was like Banjo Kazooie with like the giant mechanical shark and like the dirty
Yeah.
water. I also don't like big waters, which is why I will never
Huh.
play Subnautica. I've been asked to play it and I'm like, no, like I won't. And and I mentioned earlier that I'm also a huge arachnophobe. My chat does this really cute thing where they're like, "Oh, Hannah, like you should play this game. Like it's really good." And then I'll play it, and then there's like a giant freaking spider in front of me. I'm like, "Thanks,
Oh.
guys. Thanks." Like I played Grounded, which
Ah!
is not a horror game, but to me, that is a horror game because you have these giant wolf spiders or giant orb weavers, which I hate that I know the name and types of those spiders now. But like I remember me and my friend Jazzy, we were playing it together and just doing co-op. And oh my god, like we were on top of like some big like stone structure or something, and she's like, "Oh, like Hannah, don't worry, like it's not gonna come at us, like it can't reach us." Tell me why it like literally like leaped and jumped right to where we were at, and I think I
Because
might
that's
have
wolf
peed myself a
spiders.
little bit. Yeah, it was a giant wolf spider, and it came
They
running
jump.
right at us with red eyes. It was so scary. Yeah, and spiders do jump too. Like it was, oh my god, it was so terrifying.
I do think Grounded and a couple other horror games as well, which I really appreciate, have an arachnophobia like friendly mode that you can
Yes.
enable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's
Lethal Company
cool.
has that too. Yeah.
Oh
And I
yeah, Lethal
appreciated it a
Company.
lot.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Like spiders
appreciate
don't
it.
bother me, but I understand that they are like a very common fear. So I think that's a
Mhm.
pretty cool accessibility feature that's starting
Yeah.
to get implemented. I think that's neat.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's spiders have never really bothered me, although my bother with things like insects or even like birds isn't so much the fact that they exist or that they're. It's when things kind of like touch you in weird ways or like flap and
Ooh.
stuff.
Making me cringe over here. Oh,
A little caress.
already.
Oh no, there was one time like many years ago, like old cat of mine managed to get a pigeon in the house which was still alive.
Oh,
Oh
I found this
no.
out when I pulled the couch back because the dog was trying to get at it, and like I thought it was like there was a ball stuck under there. I pulled back and there's this pigeon just sitting there looking terrified.
oh,
And
poor
I'm fine.
baby.
I'm fine right up until the point where I apparently got just a little bit too close and its wings flapped, and so I flapped, and it was just whoa. That's the point where like anything can be like flappy or creepy crawly until it does it at me. Then it's like no.
I got a chicken knocked my sunglasses off the other day with a very powerful wing. Birds are to be
Oh, yeah.
feared.
I love chickens. They're so funny.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that if you got punched in the head by one. It was strong.
Swans are the worst. Dual swans coming from different angles and blocking you in.
Swans are mean.
Mm.
Peacocks too. They're mean. I've been bitten by a peacock before.
Wow. I feel like it's because they're posh. They're just like, right,
Yeah.
anybody else,
Yeah.
peck.
I like how we've gone from like what games are we looking forward to next year to
Hear the peacock.
here are all the things that we're terrified of or like
Yeah.
animals that
Yeah.
we have issues with.
Mm.
Slenderman. Well, Slenderman's coming to VR as well, actually, to bring it back to horror. There's an
Yes, yeah,
animal I have issue with. But yeah, Slenderman coming to VR, I think will be. I genuinely don't know if I'll survive that.
No.
I
I
feel
feel like
like I
everyone
missed
just
the
had a
whole-
moment then.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone
Yeah,
was like
just
sort of
took me in,
remembering
it was
what
like-
Slenderman was like.
No,
because they're in that.
I started giggling because I saw a meme the other day that was like a picture that of like the poorly drawn Slender Man, like in the woods, like nailed onto a tree. Are we allowed to curse on this show? Is that okay?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, beneath the picture, a poorly drawn Slender Man, it said "bitchless" in all caps. And so that's why I just started giggling. Because now whenever I see Slender Man, I'm going to be like, oh, he got no maidens. Like,
Maidenless.
Oh man.
I feel like I missed out on the whole Slenderman phenomenon. It just kind of like passed me by at the height of its popularity for some reason. And then my only frame of reference is when they parodied it on Supernatural as Thin Man.
Oh my god, yes. This is I'm gonna try not to go into a total thing, but I have been watching Supernatural for the first time, and I'm up to season 13, and I am obsessed with it. But that I remember watching that one and being like, "That's Slender Man, isn't it?" Do you know, like when you're trying to figure it out, you're like, "How do I know you?"
Oh
It's
man,
like the
I
height
feel
of pop culture.
for sure. I feel like I went through a period where, like I've always loved games and grown up with games, but when I was like a later teenager or in some teenage years, I kind of moved away from it whilst I was trying to be an experimental cool goth or whatever. And but I was big on reading, like books took over my life with Stephen King, and I fell into No Sleep, and like I may have read every single story on No Sleep. Untrue, but I like to pretend that it's true. And I remember the Slender Man craze on there, and reading up every creepypasta I could, and discovering short form like horror, and seeing that kind of grow into TV shows and then into amateur games as well and indie games, and then go from there into bigger stuff. Like Poppy Playtime is No Sleep to a T. That is creepypasta brought to life. Like that is absolutely the sort of dumb enough to be a little bit funny, but that makes it 10 times scarier kind of vibe that it's so perfect. But I definitely was embroiled deep in Slender Man. He got me bad.
It kind of reminds me when I think it's a show that's called Channel Zero, and they did an episode
Yes.
called Pirate Cove.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
was
That was
yeah.
a creepypasta. They did a whole anthology. Sorry, oh my god.
Yeah.
They did the anthology series of all of them. They did the Stairs in the Woods as well on Butcher's Block.
Butcher
I'm so
Block
glad
is
you
the
brought this
best.
up.
Butcher's Block.
Yeah.
Oh, the Stairs in the Woods is like a real thing. Just throwing that out there. I'm from the Appalachian Mountains.
Real quick.
Okay.
They're real.
Yeah, there's like an old thing that like if you find stairs in the woods, you never go up them.
That's crazy.
I mean, I learned this from Search and Rescue Woods on No Sleep. I didn't realize it was like an Appalachian like thing.
I mean,
photoshopped pictures.
Yeah.
there are like I think they actually do exist in some places, but I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's like half folk legend, half like internet legend at this point, especially because like there's a large amount of people online who are really interested in like Appalachian folklore. Sometimes they like get it really wrong though, and I'm like, no. But yeah, I don't know if you're like, yeah, if you're in the woods and you hear your name, no, you didn't, like that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
that's an old saying, but now like the TikTokers are all about it. It's really interesting. The people yearn for Appalachian mysticism. You know what I mean?
This
get
is
it.
like, yeah, this is the lifeblood of creepypasta as well. Like Appalachian legends, Stairs in the Woods, Don't Respond to Your Name, Whistling, Wendigos, and also you're not supposed to say like the other ones and stuff, so I don't want to like breathe into them or anything. But yeah, there's
Wendigos
loads of...
are not Appalachian.
No, but I think of like America and that kind of side of things, and that's
You're
where I
right,
pulled
yeah.
that from. But
No, I know.
Gives me Blair Witch vibes a little bit too, especially when that movie first came out and
That's
the
in
marketing behind
Maryland.
it. Yeah. It reminds me of like the foresty folklore type horror genre. Like it kind of like reminds me of that, and like within like the movie and how like they're interviewing and there's like this legend and people like, oh, it's real, it's real, it's real, and then
yeah.
all of that stuff. So it definitely gives that vibe.
Yeah, and like displaced from its like actual original interpretation and inserted into spooky woodlands of the Midwest for some reason.
Yeah, it's very interesting sometimes where people decide to place like Americana stories. Like, why is Blair Witch in Maryland? Maryland? Are you kidding me?
I only know it for cookies, to be honest.
Like, sorry, Maryland. Sorry, Scotland, and sorry, Maryland, for like speaking slander. No, that always just confuses me. But like, I don't know. When you grow up with that kind of stuff, is it any like real wonder that I would look at Slender Man and be like, I would simply befriend him? Like I don't know.
Give him a hug. I'd take him out for ice cream.
It's more of a like, I'm just gonna learn how to peacefully live beside this thing, I guess. that's kind of the vibe. It's like
Coexist.
basically, I mean, if we really want to talk like history of it, a lot of it is a lot of people from the Appalachian Mountains are actually of Scottish Highland ancestry. And wild fact is that it's actually the same mountain range. Even it just broke apart when the continents did, and
Oh wow.
so a lot of the folklore traditions of like Scottish Highlanders, which is like, yeah, there's just a weird guy who lives in the woods, but like we don't bother him, he don't bother us. You know what I mean? That's kind of the same attitude, I guess, almost where it's like, yeah, that's Big Leaky. You know, he lives in the lake. He's got a nasty temper sometimes, but like, who doesn't? You know, like I don't know.
Oh, so to kind of bring us back into some semblance of
Sorry.
focus.
Yeah.
I don't even know where you go from there, but
I don't know either. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll bring in one thing I'm really excited for is the increased releases with PS1 style graphics.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got like Holston, Ground Zero, Heartworm. The list goes on. Sorry, we're closed. It's just that genre just seems to have exploded right now, and it's pro country, as we mentioned earlier.
Good.
yeah, I want to give a shout out to Sorry We're Closed. I think as well, because playing the demo with that,
Definitely.
like just that very. I forget whether it was one of the devs or whether I saw it somewhere else, but that description of it essentially is just Silent Hill, but insanely queer. It's just like it's brilliant. It's just
I love
that.
it so much.
It's
so
iconic.
visually appealing.
Yeah.
I love it, especially with I know with a lot of the gay community, they are kind of wrapped up into like the nightlife as well too, and just how beautiful and how color and the representation that that game has. I remember this is actually the same night that I played Hollow Body as well too. Like I was just kind of making a day of just doing horror demos like back to back to back to back. And Sorry We're Closed is that game as well as Hollow Body as well too, that I'm just so pumped for just because of that LGBT representation that the game does have. I'm so excited for, like, it's so gorgeous. I also want to bring up too, because we're talking about games that are coming up as well as indie games. I don't know, have you guys checked out, I think it's pronounced Tenebris Somnia? Have you checked
Yes.
that game
The
out?
live action. Yeah.
Oh
That looks
my
insane.
lord. That game had me shook when I played it. I went in fully blind, and as soon as that live action just came
Yeah.
onto screen, I'm like, oh, we're in a movie.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden that monster just starts chasing you. Like something that I personally have a fear of as well too, other than spiders in deep water, would be being chased. Oh my goodness. Like to have like this Home Alone, like Super Nintendo graphics as well too, and then it just switches to something very modern and almost kind of looks like an A24 film. And just
Yeah.
to see that come to life in the most visceral, immersive way, it was so fascinating. But I'm also excited for Sorry We're Closed too. Indica was also a very interesting demo that I played
Indica,
Yes,
as
it
well
was.
yes.
too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm stoked for that one.
me too. It's almost, I know I just brought up A24, but it's almost as if A24 Films created a video game where you have
Absolutely.
like this weird universe where you are like, I think it actually takes place in Russia where you're like this Russian nun. The game is in English though, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's the demo starts off as you kind of being like captured or held hostage by like this one prisoner, and he has like um this like goal that he's trying to get to, and he like believes, and I don't remember if it was a prophecy or not, but in Indica, the character that you play, she has like this what we want to say like a conscious, but I don't know if it's a conscious of good and evil, which I'm sure the game probably progresses to having you decide that. And it has like this modern slash retro feel to it. Like as soon as I started hearing like the retro gaming music come in, I literally had to check my tabs and make sure an ad or like my Spotify wasn't playing some weird music, because the game itself it's very modernized, like a over the shoulder like Resident Evil type game. And then when you pray and the whole you pray and like the world is together, and then when you stop praying, like the world like breaks apart and it's like this hellscape, and it's these puzzles that are intertwined into the environment, and it's so fascinating. Like these indie devs, have such like a creative flow, and the things that they're doing in the gaming industry, like I want to see more groundbreaking um innovation and ideas within like the AAA games. I think that's what the AAA industry is kind of missing, is they don't have like these outside of the box type ideas, and seeing that with these indie devs and I hate to say like these hidden gems that a lot of people aren't really looking for. Like I want to see more of that, and the fact that we get to experience them and play them and kind of see what people are creating, like it's such a beautiful thing to see and experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, unfortunately, like it, especially these big publishers, when it comes to like AAA, they tend to be pretty risk averse. So like
Mm.
something that is really groundbreaking might not get funded. You know,
That's true.
it's one of those like very complicated things. But if you can point to an indie and say, hey, this game, did these numbers, like they love numbers.
Hmm.
So like the more we see this cool stuff in the indie space, I really do hope that more AAA games are willing to be weird. Like I think Remedy has kind of almost made it their like staple at this point, that they're like,
Hmm.
we're
Yeah.
kind of weird, like I respect the hell out of that. Like
Yeah, embrace the weird.
Embrace it.
absolutely. The
Mm.
people want it. They want
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, and if there's one place you can get away with weird more than anywhere else, it's horror, of course.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
Well, on that note, the last AAA title which went really risk averse was probably like something like Death Stranding, and Kojima is working on OD, which is supposed to be a horror game.
Yes,
So
yeah.
hopefully he's pushing that in a creative way. Obviously he
Mm.
will, it's Kojima, but I want to see how he tackles horror in a video game, especially with Jordan Peele attached to it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jordan
he's making
Peele.
that.
It's
It's a
gonna be
shame
fabulous.
yeah, it's a shame he hasn't been involved in more games, honestly. Like he's brilliant.
I kind of like that he's like a limited resource though. Like if you want to see a Jordan Peele thing, you've got to go out and find it, and there's only a certain amount of them, and all of them are good. You know
Right.
what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, that's
Like
true. That's
I
true.
think he's such like an auteur for it, and I think that makes it definitely even more exciting, gives it more gravitas. It's like when they were saying George R.R. Martin was part of Elden Ring. It was like, oh my god, okay, they're going to bring out the heavy hitters. I feel like it's that kind of way with Jordan Peele. He's definitely got the magic touch.
Yeah. Although I do think it's something I'm as guilty of this as anyone, but like really intrigued for it, and yet know nothing about it at all. Really, at this point, we've seen a bunch of people talk, and we've seen some math move, but we just think this is bad just because of who's attached. This is bad to be good, I guess.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it's like we kind of have, I guess we already have proof of concept with Kojima specifically on like what they can do with horror, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
and I know the obvious thing is probably going to say like, oh, Silent Hills and that, but also like, there's plenty of horror in Metal Gear, and there's horror in Death Stranding, but there was plenty of horror in Metal Gear, and there's definitely there's a subtlety and also a not subtlety to it that I'm really excited to see, because it's like some stuff that he has done and his teams have done, because I never really, this is very specific, I don't like to talk about Kojima as like a singular person, as if he is the one creating the game by himself.
So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, like he's great at what he does, but the teams have to help as well, and they have to make
Right.
these visions. But I'm definitely, I think for a lot of us, just seeing what we saw, there's an excitement in it, because it's like we know that there's bound to be some craziness, to come out of that, and to also, especially with Death Stranding. I mean, I haven't played it, but I've been watching it be played recently, and I'm
Hmm.
quite late to it. But there's some stuff that I've seen, like when you look in the mirror and you get like these hallucinations, and I'm like, oh my god, some of this stuff is terrifying, and it's not inherently a horror game. So like, to be able to turn around and be like, all right, I'm actually making a horror, so it's done with intention.
Mhm.
I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like. I think the idea of having the intention of it being horror rather than dripping it around something that isn't means that
Mhm.
it's going to be quite, I'm hoping, I mean, we'll see, but hopefully it'll be quite intense. I'm really ready for something that's incredibly intense.
It's always interesting to see who's attached to Kojima Productions as well. He always has so many people involved with it. Like, I think every time he posts an Instagram picture, it's like, oh, he's with Mike Flanagan today. Oh, today he's with Jordan Peele and Udo Kier. Is that the guy? He was in the trailer for OD, right? So I'm
Yeah.
want to see what talent is in this game as well. If they brought in any more sort of horror icons or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just conscious of where we are time-wise and and how long we got left. I think start wrapping it up a bit, but just before we do, any kind of final mentions for upcoming games that you want to shout out? Anything else that?
Game called Luto, which I don't remember really much about. I just remember it really standing out to me in the trailers I've seen.
I
It looks
remember
very
seeing
much
that
like
demo
Visage.
be played too for Ludo. It's very interesting.
I'll look into it.
I do have, well, I could bring up my whole Steam wish list if I wanted to, but the ones that come to mind for me personally, I didn't talk about mouthwashing. I didn't talk about Sniper Killer, and I am such a fan of, I think it's Black Eyed Priest, Torture Star Video, as well as the Puppet Combo games too, because I know that we were kind of talking about the PS1 era, kind of remaking this revolution of like this trend that we're kind of seeing, especially within indie games. Playing Sniper Killer was really interesting. That is from Black Eyed Priest, and I think Torture Star Video is part of that as well too. They're kind of like they're all kind of intertwined. Like I think they're all like friends, if I'm not mistaken, but they're also separate developers and separate people, respectively. Sniper Killer is really interesting because you kind of play as the villain and like the I want to say the survivor, for lack of a better term. Heartworm, I really enjoyed as well too as an indie game. One that's really I'm really, really curious about, and you know you've seen it. And we've seen way too many PT copies. We have seen them already. However, something about the game Ill, capital ILL, that
Yeah.
game really has my interest peaked because when I'm creating and I'm streaming and producing content, I want a game that's going to make me shut my stream off. Like I want to be that terrified. And I think I'm hoping that Ill is going to be one of those games where I'm just like, "Oh my god, like this is going to stick with me forever." Like I cannot believe we just watched that. Cuz
creature
PT personally for
designs.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, PT for me personally, I like it freaked me out. And I had to play the Unreal Engine version of it. Like I didn't play like the original. I watched it when I was younger watching the Markipliers and the Jacksepticeye's of the YouTube verse, but watching the trailers for Ill and just how weird and how beautiful and realistic it looks, I'm very, very curious about that game as well.
I'll look into that.
I have a last minute throw out. Samurai Unicorn. I am very excited for that.
Yes.
I'm gonna go check that one out right now.
Yeah, when I first found out about that, I didn't realize it was a horror. And then I've been following like the development, and then I was like, oh my god, it's a horror game. And I was just
Yeah.
like, yes. That game looks incredible. I really like cyberpunky stuff. Like I'm obsessed with Blade Runner. So that was kind of what hooked me initially, because that was the kind of vibe I got. And then as I've been watching it, like all the development updates, and it's like getting creepier and more interesting. And it does something that I absolutely adore, that video games don't do enough of anymore, which is costumes for characters and
Yeah.
unlockable costumes. Like I was one of those people that, I'd be playing Project Zero Fatal Frame to like 2 especially to unlock the silly
Yeah.
costumes, and Silent Hill games that had Silent Hill 3 had costumes in it, like when you could get the magical girl outfit.
Oh yeah.
Like, I love that. I think not enough not enough games in general, but not enough horror games just have a bit of fun like that. I think costumes are a really good way to do that. So that made me happy to see.
Yeah.
No, I think one last one for me would be Slitterhead.
Yeah.
Yes.
From the creator of Siren, that like we've heard about it years ago, but we're still in the dark about it completely.
I think that's why it's like hard to be. It's excited, but it's hard to be like when are we gonna get more? When are we gonna see a bit more? Because I'm excited. Like, Siren's one of my favorite games. Like obsessed with Siren. It's one of the this is not a flex, because I wish I could be. No, it isn't, because I wish I could be more frightened by games. Like I've played a lot of them, so a lot of stuff is kind of dulled.
It's
and I
so
hate
true.
that.
Yeah. You
But
get used to it.
you get too like
them.
you know what to expect. You're like, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen. But Siren, even to this day, any of them, like the original PS2 games or Blood Curse on the PS3, like they terrify me. They are so scary, especially when you play it as like, there's a bit in Siren Blood Curse, the PS3 one, where you play as the child and you're so vulnerable and it's so scary, but because the graphics are quite pretty, they still hold up quite well. It
Yeah.
feels way too real. And there have been plenty of times where I've just been in the middle of like her mission and I'm just like, can't do it. Like controller down.
Aw.
No. It's always quite unique with that sight jacking thing, obviously, where you get the enemy seeing you. It's just that whole seeing it from their perspective is just always scared me so much.
I feel like the technology's come on so much since that game as well. If they were to do a new Siren or even a Blood Curse remake or something, they could make it a lot more, I don't know, more polished, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's, I think, the main thing. Like, a lot of people with games, obviously, better graphics and more photorealism or whatever. I'm like, no, use your technology. Scare me more than you did when I was a kid. Do that.
Yeah. No, definitely. So the thing, I recently learned about endurance horror, where people are trying to find the worst horror films and trying to get them past that point, as you say, like where people are.
Oh boy.
And it's, yeah, I saw it on TikTok very recently in some films, and I checked out one of them, and it was just, yeah, there's
Like,
some really horrific stuff out there.
Where's
Which one?
Like how you can stomach, like, just absolutely.
Oh, like most disgusting kind of thing.
Yeah. Like the Serbian film is like a Disney film compared to some of the films that they put out there now, and it's just, oh god, I
That's
can't.
weird.
Yeah.
Which one did you watch? I'm so curious.
Me too.
It was called Headless.
Okay.
Oh god.
I'm definitely not looking this up.
Yeah,
to
no, don't.
watch
Honestly,
immediately.
don't. It's yeah, it's just absolutely horrific.
I feel like
It's-
you've admitted it online. You're going to get put on a list or something.
Exactly.
It says murder, cannibalism, and necrophilia. So you're
Yeah.
definitely being put on some kind of list.
No
Yes.
thanks.
Nope.
No
I
thank
always
you.
say,
It
like,
was-
you look it up and it's just been like it does that, but then the images are all like costumes and gifs, like like clip art gifs of the headless horseman.
Mm,
So it's not on Disney Plus.
It's
Not on
No.
Disney Plus, probably.
Okay.
definitely not.
I always have Chads kind of come in. We'll have like horror movie discussions and stuff, and someone's like, oh, like my favorite movie is Suburban Film. I'm like, you need to seek therapy and seek Christ. Like you need to
Yeah.
go do something. Like that is so insane that there are people who kind of and keep in mind too, like I'm all about pushing boundaries and being innovative, but to the point where like there has to be some type of like stopping point where it's like, okay, that's enough horror. That's enough
Yeah.
gruesome. That's enough,
Yeah.
disturbing stuff to see. It's like when I have people who come in, they're like, "Oh, Suburban's my favorite." I'm not gonna lie, I immediately ban them. I'm like, even joking about that in general is absolutely ridiculous. I
Hannah, I'm
understand
so sorry.
curiosity,
It's
but-
Serbian film, not suburban. It's
Serbian film. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
it was making me
film.
laugh. The like suburbia, like being the the
I
true
thought you were
horror.
talking about The
I
Bird,
mean,
which is a very different film.
Serbian film. I apologize. Thank you for
I
correcting
feel like there's
me.
a point like someone came on my stream, which I don't stream, and said that I'd just be like, I don't know what that is, and just like because I don't, because I feel like at some point you kind of just turn into an edgelord
Yeah.
of being like, oh, I like
Definitely.
this like super tense that like cool, that's good for you. Bye.
Yeah.
Like
That's how I feel.
that's all you have to say. Okay,
Mm.
see ya. Like, all right, go touch grass. Like,
I definitely had that because I watched The Sadness, which I
Oh,
think
no.
is an incredible film for what it
Mhm.
is. Like it's one of those films, right? It has a lot of commentary. It's very interesting. The gore is beautiful. I would not watch it again ever
Mm-mm.
because the content of
definitely.
that film, is extreme,
I
and
couldn't finish it.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. Like I felt like I was, I felt like I was pushing myself down into the ground to finish it.
Mhm.
And like no, I'm saying, like I can stomach a lot of gore. Like I love Saw films, like I love
Right.
gore.
I
But
don't. I can't.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But that film, because of the content, and like sexual nature of a lot of it, I was like, no, this is a bit too much. But I remember telling someone who, like, I don't know them anymore, thankfully, but I told someone I watched it, and I was like I said this, I was like, oh, I watched it. It was a very interesting film. It did a lot of stuff. I give it props for what it did, but I was like, I couldn't watch it again. Like, it was too intense. And then the next day, they like come up to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I watched that film like 3 times in a row." And I'm
Oh
like,
God. Red
okay,
flag. Red flag.
like, yeah, right. Like,
Abort.
what
Abort.
do you want from me?
I'm going.
Yeah.
Like,
You must be so proud.
Yeah, and it is like this weird
I
sort of
couldn't watch my
need.
favorite film 3
Eddie.
times in a row back to, like, you know.
Yeah, right?
I can, but I'm autistic, so that's different.
You know, yeah, I don't know. At some point, it just feels like people get weirdly competitive about it, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna play that game. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm
in
just
terms
not
of
into.
games, Outlast Trials is probably one of the ones that's pushed boundaries the most in what
Yes.
you see on
Yes,
screen
yeah.
in a while, and I've not seen many games go that far in a while, and it's interesting
No.
to see that they're just
I have
going
a lot
full
of
steam
thoughts
ahead.
about that one.
Well, I might
That's
not
all
play
I'm gonna
some.
say.
Outlast Trials. I thought it was probably one of the best, other than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm a little biased though because I love Gun Interactive, but I
Mm.
feel like Outlast Trials was one of the best horror multiplayers I think that's ever come out, probably within the last 5 years. I would
It's
say
so fun.
it's
Yeah.
so fun.
Even
It
though you know
pushes those
exactly what to do.
boundaries. Exactly. Um, and I'm happy that the console players now have a full release of the game as well
Mm.
too. I don't remember if crossplay has been integrated yet.
I think so. There's an option
It
in the
has,
menu
yeah.
for it.
Oh,
Mm.
Oh,
thank
really?
God.
Okay.
Yeah, I really want to go back and revisit that game at some point too. And I will say with Texas Chainsaw is like a hard like neck and neck with Outlast Trials for me personally. I love that they're continuing with making content and putting more love and lore and everything into that game as well too. Especially with whatever happened with Friday the 13th and the licensing and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
all
Oh,
the love and
right.
stuff
That's
with
right.
that.
All
So
our hearts broke for a
I
second there. We're
know.
like,
Yeah.
we're
And
never
I
getting
can't wait for the
Jason
game
X.
too, which is even worse.
Capitalism is gonna capitalism.
On that
Mhm.
note, I know we're kind of off talking about things to look forward to, but you've reminded me, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Of course,
I
yeah.
can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I am so excited for that. I don't play a lot of multiplayer horrors, mostly because I don't actually know a lot of people who play horrors. It's literally usually just me and my partner. So we played like Texas Chainsaw Massacre together, but I only played it for a little bit. But Killer Clowns is one of like my top films. It's so fun. It's so stupid, in a great way. Like, you know what I mean? It
Very
is stupid,
campy.
and I
Yeah,
can't, I
it's got the
can't
kick.
wait to see that. I can't wait to be like just. I want to be shooting people with my little guns and turning them into cotton candy, and everything about that looks fun.
It
Camp
is really
horror
fun.
we need more camp horror. Because
So
campiness,
true.
yeah, it's a cornerstone of horror as a genre. Like, I know it was mentioned earlier when we were talking about like Sorry We're Closed, like as in like having queer games, because I got really excited last year because there was a game called Fear the Spotlight that I played that was a very PSX style game, but the characters in it, the two main characters, they were two girls, and I was so excited because I was like, yes, lesbians, horror, let's go.
Let's go.
I'm here for it. And that's great, and I love seeing like both this mixture of like queerness and campiness coming into horror games, because it's been in horror genre in movies and books for so long. We deserve more queer horror in games, and we deserve like more queer people making
Agreed.
horror games. Like, I'm
So
so
true.
psyched.
I think the campiness of stuff like The Quarry and Until Dawn is why they were so successful, because
Exactly.
people went into them expecting a slasher movie where people die, people have unmarital sex and get murdered. So the choices are like on you. So I think people just really enjoy being involved in a slasher movie where they're interacting with it. So they get to make the choices. So I think that's why those games are so successful.
Right. On that note, I think just to kind of before we wrap up, obviously normally when we have these podcasts, we are going to be having regular is it quarterly ones we're planning with the jury, so get together with jury presenters, whoever's available, have more of these conversations, because it's been a lot of fun and looking forward to do it again, particularly later on in the year when we know more about what's coming out and what's been out and how it's been received. But obviously the main focus of Talking Terror is to talk to the developers who make the horror games themselves, and we do have a few more lined up already. Do you want to mention, Will, about who we've got in terms of who's already confirmed, or
Yeah. So next week we're talking to the developers of Crow Country. So we'll be
Nice.
talking about, obviously they've announced their release date now, so that's May 9th, I think.
Hell
So
yeah.
not less than 2 months till that comes out, which is amazing. We'll also be talking to developers from Alan Wake 2,
Nice.
and Remedy. So we'll be talking to them at the very start of April. We've got some not confirmed yet, but we're lining up with the developers from Sorry We're Closed, Samurai Unicorn, Tenebra Sonoma. They're the ones that were in line at the moment, yeah. So it's just a case of getting times and everything lined up. But yeah, we've got quite a lot of really key releases lined up. So
Looking forward to it.
It's fantastic.
So obviously, awful lot to look forward to there. I mean, not just for us who obviously get to like have these conversations and we talk to people about like these games that we're really looking forward to and really enjoyed, but for yourselves as well and for the podcast. So we hope you enjoy the content that's coming up, and obviously alongside that, we are going to be continuing monthly to showcase the games that have come out, because it's a lot of work. There's an awful lot of them, like almost continually. So we're trying as best we can to keep up with them and make sure that people can see them, because it is important to showcase games, and particularly with so many that are like, I think the term hidden gems was used earlier, like people like these really good games and there's like a cult following, or a lot of people might know about them, but there's also a lot of people that don't. So the more people we can bring that to, the better. So that's kind of our purpose as a whole in the awards, but also in these podcasts and in the showcases we have. So lots of great stuff to look forward to. I hope people do enjoy it. But for now, we are going to sign off, and I'll just say once again, thank you very much to all of our guests, and encourage everyone who is watching this to check down in the description and check out all their work and their content, and give them follows and support as much as you can. And yeah, we will catch you again next time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
No
everyone.
Bye.
This has been Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards. Thank you very much for listening. Check out the links in the description for more info on where to follow our guests in order to support them and keep up to date with their work. The Horror Game Awards will be airing live on YouTube on Saturday the 16th of December. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to avoid missing out on what promises to be a very exciting night of awards and game reveals, as well as future episodes of this podcast and other content. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.